Welcome to the next lecture on circuit theory. Even though I had said that the Kirchhoff's laws problems are just like now high school level problems, since you are just in the beginning of the second semester, it should not happen so that somebody should say, no sir, that the contents were not neatly discussed. So I have decided to work on the example which was there put yesterday. To save time, I have already written the answers. So what was told yesterday, that using Kirchhoff's laws we can compute the voltage across any resistor or current through any resistor. We used simple circuit yesterday. Today we added one arm so that it is somewhat bigger. So the circuit is very simple. Two voltage sources, voltage source 1, voltage source 2 and 5 resistances, and the question was to compute the current in this 5 ohm resistor, or IAB. The current in 5 ohm resistor was this current I was to be computed using, and obviously we have to use Kirchhoff's laws. Then there are two Kirchhoff's laws as discussed, that Kirchhoff's current law or node law, KCL, and KVL, Kirchhoff's mesh law, voltage law. So Kirchhoff's current law is taken into consideration while putting various values of the currents. So we want to compute this. What we have to do? I1, let this be I1, let this be I3. Actually, if we would have taken that also, in that case the thing would have been simple, but we took somehow I1, then this I3, then this is I1 minus I3. So what we do? We use Kirchhoff's law here. So we do not separately use KCL. What we do, at a node, at least there should be 3 arms. If there are 4, then it becomes more complex. At least 3, 1, 2 and 3. Then while assuming currents, we assume in 2, and remaining Kirchhoff's law decides. So let this current be I1, let this current be I1. We start in a conventional manner. Let this be I1, let this be I2. You can assume any current and compute remaining using KCL. So I solved this example by one method. There can be multiple methods. Answer should come as same. So let this current be I1, let this current be I2, let this current be I3. Now you can say that this current be I4. That way you can go anywhere. You can just increase the number of variables, and then applying KCL at node 1, you can node A, you can say I1, this one, and then their algebraic sum to be 0. What we do? We go by a simple straightforward method by reducing number of variables at the introduction stage itself. So this is I1, this is I2, this we assume as I3. Now if I focus at node A, this I have assumed. Now there is no need for me to assume this. I can compute this using KCL. So this is I1, this is I3. Therefore this is I1 minus I3, and that is my final answer. My final answer will be, I need to compute I1, I need to compute I2, may or may not be, I need to compute I3, and when I compute I1 and I3, I1 minus I3 is my final answer I. Then I have assumed I1, I2, I3. This was given to me by KCL. This is the direction. I1 direction I have assumed. Everything I have assumed. I2 direction I have assumed. I3 direction I have assumed. This was given by KCL. Then at this node B now, this is I2. This is I1 minus I3 in this direction. So what is KCL? Currents incoming. Here also why do it? I1 was incoming and these two are outgoing. So current incoming is I1, I3 plus I1 minus I3 equal to I1. I think it is quite simple, no need to discuss also. Here I2 plus I1 minus I3. I2 plus I1 minus I3. I wrote it in this way just to make the things simpler while arranging the equation. Otherwise it should be I2 plus I1 minus I3. This can be interchanged. So I think so. Currents in all arms are drawn using KCL. Means when we solve the problem, we assume Q currents, we compute remaining currents using KCL, and once we do that, this is a situation where I have got three variables, I1, I2, I3. Now, to get the answer, I must need three equations using these three variables. So I need to use three loops. I need to apply KVL in three loops. Now how many loops are here? Loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, loop 4, loop 5, loop 6. There are 6 loops. You can choose any three. Now those who are actually interested should solve this problem by two methods. Means considering any three loops at one time and considering some other loops at other time, and they should tally the answer. But I again repeat that mastery in this is now not a need of the hour. So let us be very clear. We must have clear notion what we are doing. Means it's not just enough that you should be sincere and hardworking, but you should also ensure that your work is smart. In today's time, if you unnecessarily spend time in not required hard work, it's a donkey work. So don't do that. So let's just listen. It means those students who are sincere enough should try to focus where they should spend more time. So here now I take loop 1. In loop 1, so I put loop 1 here, loop 2 I have applied here. So what is loop 1? Voltage source equal to voltage drop. Only thing while writing, I will do reverse reverse. It's easy to solve simultaneous equation. Voltage source is 10, voltage drop is 10 I1 plus 10 I2. 10 I1 plus 10 I3. 10 I1 plus 10 I3 equal to 10 is equation 1. I think I will rush through because it is quite simple. And there is one biggest advantage. I got feedback yesterday. Few thought live sessions, but we will have that. But the biggest advantage of recorded sessions is that there is no scope for complaining that because of contents were covered at fast speed, we could not understand it. You can pause, try to understand everything what was discussed, and you can continue. So first equation. So loop 2 is this loop. Voltage source 4 volt equal to voltage drop 10 I2 plus 10 into this. So in this equation, what we had got, only two variables there, therefore I did not simplify further. And I marked the equation 1. Now for this equation, 10 I2 plus 10 bracket this equal to 4. I expanded it. 10 I1 plus 20 I2 minus 10 I3 equal to 4. And I further simplified. 5 I1 plus 10 I2 minus 5 I3 is 2. So this is equation 2. So based on loop 1 I got equation 1, based on loop 2 I got equation 2. Now you can take this loop. While taking this loop, only thing is that you are going in this loop, there is no voltage source. So voltage source is 0, voltage drops should sum to 0. Then in that case, while deciding the direction, you have to be very careful here if you choose this loop. So anyway that these thumb rules are not important now because manual solving is just abolished as only for gate that may be required, otherwise not. So if you want to choose loops, normally choose the loop in which voltage source is there, so that some kind of confusion doesn't take place. So here loop 3, so I don't use this loop, I use this as loop 3. Those who want can have homework. This is loop 3. In this loop 3 again, voltage source equal to voltage drop. So voltage source is 10, voltage source is 10, voltage drop 10 I1 plus 5 into I1 minus I3 plus 10 into I1 plus I2 minus I3. So 10 I1 plus 5 into this plus 10 into this, I simplified 25 I1 plus 10 I2 minus 15 I3 equal to 10. Then you say, here you got something, you simplified it here again. Here you got something, why did not you divide it by 5? That is something, again this technique is irrelevant today. You have computers, but when computers were not there, such skill sets, I have seen 10 I2 here, I want to eliminate it. I also have 10 I2 here. So there is no need for me to divide it and again multiply. So I marked as equation 3. So equation 2, equation 3, then subtracting equation 2 from equation 3. 3 minus 2 will eliminate I2. 3 minus 2 will eliminate I2 automatically. So what I get? 3 minus 2 is 25 I1 minus 5 I1, 20 I1. I2 got eliminated, minus 15 I3, minus that is plus 5, that is minus 10 I3. 20 I1 minus 10 I3 equal to 8. 20 I1 minus 10 I3 equal to 8. So this is equation 4. This is equation 4 which I kept as it is. Now I had equation 1. I had equation 4. In equation 1 this 10 is plus, here it is minus. So 1 plus 4 will give me 20 I1 plus 10 I1. So 30 I1 equal to 18, I1 equal to 3 by 5 is my one answer. I1 equal to 3 by 5. Then putting I1 in 1, I got I3, that is 2 by 5. I think that if I start detailing this, then you will say am I in high school class. So I1 is 3 by 5, I3 is 2 by 5, and then the final answer, current in 5 ohm resistor is I1 3 by 5 minus I3 2 by 5 is 1 by 5. So that I is 1 by 5 amperes is the final answer. So by Kirchhoff's laws, you can solve any problem. Only thing is that if the circuit becomes bigger, number of currents which are required to assume go on increasing, and you need to have that much simultaneous equations. So I think this is KCL KVL logic is now enough. There is no need to spend unnecessary time on this. We rather move to very important aspects, how to simplify the circuits using, for that purpose, you might have heard, I don't know whether you have heard or not, what is called as a Thevenin's theorem. So Thevenin's theorem is something which I again repeat, that when all these developments of Thevenin's theorem and all that is of the time where computers were not there. Just like, to give you an example, in your generation it may not be, somewhat prior to that time digital clocks were not there, so we used to have such conventional clocks, and at a childhood stage, at the around age of what we can say, at age of around 4 or 5, to be able to read this clock, by knowing small hand and big hand was considered to be a good skill. म्हणजे घड्याळात किती वाजले हे कळणं म्हणजे काहीतरी तो मुलगा हुशार आहे, आणि मग तो पहिलीत आहे त्याला कळतं, आणि तू चौथीत गेलास तुला घड्याळ कळत नाही. So it was considered to be some skill set. But what has happened now? The world has transformed. There are digital clocks. Now such clocks are still there, but more or less it is an antique piece now. So what I mean is that the relevance is not abolished but substantially reduced. So Thevenin's equivalent circuit was considered, now it is required, even computer programs we use it, but since the digital clock I am able to understand hours and minutes directly, that time the circular motion was to be converted into numbers effectively by some kind of technique which was considered to be a skill. But since now that is directly available, the ability to read the conventional clock is no longer a substantial skill. Similarly, Thevenin's theorem is a fundamental theorem. It is used in computer programs to compute, to simplify the things. However, the person means, what I am repeating because it is important. Around 50 years back, a person, when asked to find the problem of, when asked about the problems in electrical circuits, computing currents in a particular branch or computing voltage across particular points, that time a person could do it using Kirchhoff's laws. Everything can be done using Kirchhoff's law, whatever big circuit it may be. But it was time consuming, whereas a person who knows Thevenin's theorem can do it quickly. Now since compute means for a person without knowing Thevenin's theorem, doing it by Kirchhoff's laws was taking 15 minutes, whereas a person using Thevenin's theorem could do it in 3 minutes. But now since there is a computer, you give the data and you get the answer within 0 minutes. So that is something which you must be aware of. So there is no need to mug up, means there is no point in solving multiple Thevenin's theorem problems. Forget, you can prepare separately, but otherwise it is not, otherwise that is a skill which must be known by you. Cycling now, what has happened? Cycling is required to get a good hand so that you can operate a two-wheeler properly, atomized vehicle. Few years back, mopeds were not there, so two-wheelers were atomized petrol or electric two-wheelers were not there. So cycle was required to be mastered for daily application. Now that is no longer daily application. But you must know it once, that's all. So that is the scenario with which we are proceeding. So Thevenin's theorem is fundamental, but prior to that Thevenin's theorem, there is a concept of a voltage source which we discussed. Yesterday I said that you have pseudo understanding. Now I will explain to you something which I will not name at the beginning. At the end, you should be able to understand what I intended to explain, and then I will tell the name. So now you have got the tiny cells in the clocks, in the mobile there is different kind of chargeable battery, but still A4 cells, now that bigger dry cells are not there, but A4 cells are still used in clocks or in many applications. So a conventional dry cell, or in non-technical words, batteries are cell gunia, battery cell are, so that everybody knows. So a conventional dry cell looks like this. This top indicates its positive terminal, and the entire body which is accessible from this is a negative terminal. What is voltage of this dry cell? Those who want to find the answer, can pause the video, guess it, and then view the video. Because now, since it is not so abundant in use, means 20 years back everybody would have said dry cell means 1.5 volt battery. But now that is no longer so popular, so that number might not have been so done by heart by everybody. So its voltage is 1.5 volts. 1.5 volts. It's a dry cell. Now, if you are given a digital voltmeter, DVM everybody is having now, it's very cheap also. Few years back DVM was something miracle, analog voltmeters were there. Now analog voltmeter is costlier than digital voltmeter. Means just when aluminium was invented in something around 17th century, that time in England at the banquet in Buckingham Palace, the other officers were having gold spoons and king and queen or those in the royal family were used to have aluminium spoons, because aluminium was costlier that time, much costlier, and to have aluminium was considered to be something great, just like that DVM. So few colleges were having DVMs, few others were not having. So, oh, you don't use DVM. But now DVM is cheaper, digital voltmeter, and analog meter, which you might not have even seen now, is costlier. Okay, so you have given a voltmeter. The concept is a voltmeter. This is symbol of voltmeter. And now I ask this question. I will answer the question immediately. Those who want to answer on their own should put a pause and then replay. If a voltmeter is given to you and a battery cell is given to you, by using the voltmeter, can you tell whether the battery cell is good cell or is exhausted cell? म्हणजे बॅटरीचा सेल जो दिलेला आहे तो चांगला आहे का जळलेला आहे? जळलेला ही जुन्या याच्यातली, म्हणजे जेव्हा इलेक्ट्रिक ॲप्लिकेशन्स खूप कमी होती त्या काळात बॅटरी सेल जळला आहे, म्हणजे तो जळलेला नसतो, संपलेला असतो. सो let us forget that example and focus on the theme. Using if a digital voltmeter is given to you and if a battery cell is given to you, can you find out whether the battery cell is given to you is a good in condition battery cell or is an exhausted battery cell? Those who want to attempt should put a pause, think, and after their thinking is over, they can resume and verify their thinking, or if they are unable to think, listen the answer. Now, a brute force answer without much deeper thinking would be, if there is a good cell, if there is a good battery cell and an exhausted battery cell. A good battery cell and an exhausted battery cell. What should be the reading of the voltmeter? The reading of the voltmeter for a good battery cell should be obviously 1.5 volts, and exhausted battery cell given 0 volt by reading is something which you expect. Whereas this expectation is wrong. Whatever reading we get is not as written there. For a good cell, we get 1.5 volts. This is expected and this is which is observed. And now, observed and expected. For observed, this is alright, but this exhausted battery cell even gives you around 1.1 to 1.2 volts. So, let us say that exhausted battery cell gives you 1 volt. Exhausted battery cell gives you 1 volt. I don't know whether during your childhood whether such questions have came to your mind or not. What a simple question will come to your mind. There are many applications which you might have seen which use 2 battery cells, means which operate on 3 volts. There are, say, a radio used to operate on 3 volts, the transistor radio or something else. Then if radio used to operate on 3 volts, and if this is something which is observed, then what some kind of Jugaad technology thinking, ternary thinking which will come to your mind? That you can put a pause, think on it and then try to verify. Yes, it is said that a good cell is 1.5 volts and an exhausted cell is giving 1 volt. So you will find that you will try to be mini Einstein. Sir, you will go to your neighbor. Oh, don't throw away the battery cells which are exhausted. Give it to me. Then you will take such 3 cells in radio which uses 3 volts, which operates on 3 volts. What you have got? First, and there is other in series, and this is place for cells, and it is plus and it is minus, it goes to supply for the circuit. Then you say, no, I will prepare one separate enclosure in which I will connect. Why 2 are there? I want 3 volts. Now your neighbor says, no, I have got exhausted cells, but I will say I have reading, it gives 1 volt. So I will put 1 volt, 1 volt and 1 volt. Instead of 2 good cells, I will take 3 exhausted cells, put in series. Now, this voltmeter, yes, it gives 3 volts. You can have 3 exhausted cells, you connect voltmeter, it gives 3 volts. Then is it that you have achieved something great? It gives 3 volts. So 2 good cells give 3 volts. 3 exhausted cells in series give 3 volts. If you connect 2 good cells in the battery, lamp glows or radio starts operating, motor starts running, mini motor, this toy motor. But if you put 3 exhausted cells in that either toy or battery or radio, that doesn't work. You move out, it works. 3 volts. Voltmeter gives 3 volts. I again repeat, it's a fundamental question which everybody must, it's just like embossing, just like tattoo. It must get a permanent impression on your mental plane. 2 good cells connected in series, measured on DVM, voltage is 3 volts. 3 exhausted cells connected in series, measured on DVM, voltage is 3 volts. But if I use 2 good cells in my application, it works. Radio, motor, torch. But instead of that, if I use 3 exhausted cells, that doesn't work. Now, I want you to answer this question. Why? You can pause, think, and then I will explain. Now, dry cell is something which is having somewhat very complex. It is an electrochemical cell. Means electricity is produced using chemical reaction, but it is dry, so electrolyte and all that is there. But just before that, I will explain the very fundamental. Suppose that electrochemistry is something which you must have mastered in 12th. So, suppose if I have got let us say zinc chloride, whether Cl3 or Cl2, I write down, don't know, but we can use most simple one which everyone knows, copper sulfate and copper. A copper electrode, and copper sulfate, Morsud and copper. Now, what is electrochemical equivalent? Electrochemical equivalent is the potential difference which gets created. Electrochemical equivalent is the potential difference which gets created between the electrode and electrolyte. Listen very carefully. Electrochemical equivalent is the potential difference which is created between electrode and electrolyte, and it is the property of the pair copper sulfate and copper. There is a fixed voltage which is created between electrode and electrolyte. That is called as ECE, electrochemical equivalent. It is property of the pair. Now, you can connect, this is one electrode, this is a plus, and electrolyte, you have to connect something. So, in that you need to have some kind of metal for connection that is not reactive with this. So, you can have, let us say, aluminium to collect electrode potential. Minus. So, this is a battery cell. This is a chemical cell, electrochemical cell. Electrode and electrolyte. So, this is at some fixed positive voltage with respect to this. And remember, I am again repeating because that is fundamental. Electrochemical equivalent is property of the pair. Copper sulfate will always have, let us say, just I'm giving example, let us say 2 volts, not the correct one, 2 volts. Copper sulfate pair will have 2 volts. Electrochemical equivalent is 2 volts. Its property, it's fixed. It will never change. It will never change. Now what will happen? So, if I connect a voltmeter between these two, if I connect a voltmeter here and here, it will give me 2 volts. It will give me 2 volts. And it will always try to be 2 volts. And it is irrespective of concentration of, most important, it is irrespective of concentration of electrolyte. Means if I take 1 liter water, in that if I put 10 grams of copper sulfate, Morsud, it will be 2 volts. Even if I put more, it will not change. It is property of, means the electrochemical equivalent is independent of concentration of electrolyte. It is independent of concentration of electrolyte. So that is right there. Now what I try to do, so this digital voltmeter does not have a resistance. It is expected that it is having infinite resistance. It doesn't draw any current, or very negligible current it draws. Now what I do, if this is point A and this is point B. In point A and point B, if I connect 1 mega ohm resistor between point A and point B, if I connect 1 mega ohm resistor, what will happen? Current will flow. How much current will be flowing? 2 volts upon 1 mega, 2 microamperes. 2 microamperes current will flow. Okay. Now if I reduce the resistance from 2 mega to 2 kilo, then I will require 2 milliamperes of current. If I make it from 1 mega to 1 kilo to 1 ohm, I will require 2 amperes of current. If I make it 0.1 ohm, 20 amperes of current. From where the current will come? So you must have studied electrochemistry. In electrochemistry, electric voltage is given by electrochemical equivalent, which is a property of the pair. Similarly, so voltage of an electric cell, it is called as EMF, or EMF is correct word. Voltage is something, now there is small difference, we will deal on that. Electromotive force EMF is given by ECE, electrochemical equivalent, on chemical side. Then current on electrical side will be given by what? Now current is what? Current is a rate of flow of electric charges. Current is, or to be very precise, when I say rate, it is time rate, means the denominator is normally assumed. Current is time rate of flow of electric charges, how many charges flow within given time. So this must be also proportionate to something on chemical side. It is electrochemical cell. Electric current must be because of some happening on chemical side, that is chemical reaction. Chemical reaction. So that copper sulfate, maybe that copper dissolves, you might have checked that experiment. Now, the chemical side things, I have used the term rate of chemical reaction. Rate of chemical reaction. When I say rate of chemical reaction, when I say that time, the rate is dependent on what? An extreme important question. EMF is property of the pair electrode-electrolyte. This and this. You can have any combination. You can have also, the electrolyte can be acid also. Then you can have hydrochloric acid, zinc, and many options there are there. Right now we are not mastering an electrochemistry for our science background. Only thing, the important theme we should carry. So that is, means the EMF being the property of the pair, it is independent of concentration. So if there is small concentration or large concentration, it doesn't matter. But for current, the current is rate of flow of charges, time rate. So this current is proportional. So current is rate of something. So that must be proportional to rate of some other thing, and it is proportional to rate of chemical reaction. And now, most important thing, that this rate of chemical reaction is proportional to concentration of electrolyte. Concentration of electrolyte. Therefore, now what will happen is that one may say, okay, if concentration is very less, then there will be some problem in getting more current. So if I reduce the resistance, the current should increase, but it may not increase because concentration is less. Then there is simple one. You increase concentration, what is the problem? There is a problem. That problem is that the concentration of electrolyte cannot be increased beyond a point, and it is having a finite limit. That is, the electrolyte gets, the concept is saturated. So because of saturated electrolyte, there is a finite limit of concentration Cmax. Because of finite limit on concentration of electrolyte means, if you take water, 1 liter water, in that 1 liter water you can put 10 gram of copper sulfate, it will dissolve. 10 more gram, 100 grams, it will dissolve, but if there is some limit, so it is 20%, so 200 grams it will dissolve, but if you put again, it will not dissolve. So maximum a concentration of copper sulfate electrolyte is 20%, say. The Cmax. That Cmax will give me Rmax. That is, chemical reaction cannot go beyond a maximum rate, and this Rmax will put a limit on Imax. So in any case, the current which will be given by this will not increase a given limit, maximum current. So even if you short this, the voltage is 2 volts. When no voltage 2 volts, when nothing is connected. In open circuit, when you connect voltmeter is expected to draw no current, it's 2 volts. And when you short it, you can put an emitter. If you put an emitter here, by shorting it, Imax may be, let us say, 10 amperes. So this battery cell which I get using electrochemical cell, I can't say this to be an ideal voltage. The electrochemical equivalent is 2 volts. So this is an ideal voltage source. But battery cell is not an ideal cell. It's 2 volt. So what I get? So the device which I get here, a actual electrochemical cell, dry cell is its version, similar version. So what I get, this is my battery cell, a positive terminal and negative terminal. So when I connect voltmeter, I get 2 volts. When I short and I connect emitter, I get 10 amperes. So open circuit voltage is 2 volts. Now I am coming to the conclusion. Open circuit voltage is 2 volts and short circuit current is 10 amperes. So between A and B, what I see? Point A and point B, plus and minus. What we have? If I connect a voltmeter, and then I can connect an ammeter. Obviously, before connecting ammeter, I must have a switch because. So, when I don't connect anything, open circuit voltage, I get 2 volts. That time the current reading is 0 volts because it is not connected, means no current is flowing. Or instead of that, I can put ammeter here. I can put ammeter here, no problem. Ammeter. And this is a short, which I can close, switch. When the switch is open, open circuit voltage 2 volt. When switch is open, this is S. S open. Voltage 2 volts, current 0 amperes. And S short. Switch. Voltage 0 volts, current 10 amperes. So this is called as open circuit voltage, VOC. That time at open circuit current is obviously 0. And this is called as short circuit current, ISC. That time voltage obviously 0. So between A and B, I see what? If there is no current, I get 2 volts. If there is no voltage, I get 10 amperes. So open circuit voltage 2 volts, short circuit current 10 amperes. So I will try to model something between A and B. What is there between A and B which gives me this? So that is called as a practical voltage source. A chemical cell is a practical voltage source. So what I get inside the A and B is, I am trying my level best. Those who want can pause and find the answer. So what I have inside A and B such that open circuit voltage 2 volts, short circuit current 10 amperes. So I give you a hint. The inside A and B there is one ideal voltage source and there is one series resistor. And this point is inaccessible. You can't access this point because ideal thing is not available in the world. So whatever comes to you, so you are meeting few people. Then you will say, oh, this people has this good characteristic. Can I extract this only? No. It comes with his other aspects. So only good you can't extract. So this is practical voltage source. This box is a practical source. This box is a practical voltage source. Which contains an indistinct, non-separable combination of an ideal voltage source and internal resistance. Now, what this would be? Vs and Rs. How you can compute? It's very easy to compute. At open circuit voltage, what you get? 2 volts. So when there is no current drawn, drop across this would be 0. So this one is 2 volts. So open circuit voltage, this Vs is equal to, this is equal to VOC. And those who want can pause and find out what this Rs would be, otherwise I am answering. When I short it, what happens? No resistance here. So what will be the current? Vs upon Rs. So ISC would be Vs upon Rs. What is Vs? Already computed. VOC. So what is Rs? Rs would be VOC upon ISC. So RS would be VOC upon ISC. In this case, I have told you that VOC is 2 volts, ISC is 10 amperes. So 2 by 10, it is 0.2 ohms. So every battery cell which comes to you is having some internal resistance. And then what happens when you have a battery cell? The in actual acid battery, you can put acid every time. But in dry battery cell, nothing can be put inside. So what happens is that after the things are used, the chemical composition changes and it can no longer be used. So a good battery cell is having this voltage as 1.5 volts and this is very negligible, around 0.1 ohm. And when the battery cell exhausts, this doesn't change, but the internal resistance of the battery cell changes and it becomes few kilo ohms. So the current which it can supply, maximum current which it can supply, is changed. Therefore, if there is a good battery cell, when you put a lamp, there is a voltmeter output, there is a lamp. When there is 1.5 volts. So when there is switch is off for a good cell, it gives 1.5 volts. When you put the switch on, this may be somewhat less, 1.45 or so, and lamp glows. Whereas the cell is poor cell, lamp resistance is maybe say 10 ohms. So when lamp resistance is 10 ohms and this resistance is 0.1 ohm, in that case around 150 milliamperes of current flows, lamp glows. And when the cell is exhausted, what will happen? Its internal resistance has gone few kilo ohms. When you connect voltmeter, it gives 1.5 volts. But the moment at which you put the switch on, lamp doesn't glow and this becomes 0 volt because this resistance is 10 ohm. Internal resistance is few kilo ohms, so this becomes negligible. So cell can't be used. So a practical voltage source consists of an ideal voltage source and a non-separable series resistance. Practical voltage source consists of an ideal voltage source and a non-separable series resistance. We will continue the discussion on Thevenin's theorem in the next lecture. Thank you.